You kept handing out pieces of yourself like they were small things. Little favors, little mercies, little truths. They took them like souvenirs, like nothing would run out. And now you're here, still upright, still breathing, trying to map the moment it all tilted. You keep replaying conversations. You keep scanning for the crack. Listen, there wasn't a crack in you. There was a hollow in them. Most people love the idea of real until real walks in without makeup, without filters, without exit routes. You didn't flirt with honesty. You brought it bleeding. No games, no shortcuts, no vanishing act when it got inconvenient. They said they wanted that, they didn't, because truth doesn't just expose you, it exposes them. And when a mirror shows them their own fakery, they sprint. You think loyalty buys loyalty. You think effort guarantees return. But your heart isn't a receipt, and love isn't a refund line. What you gave had weight. What they saw was utility, warmth to stand in, fuel to burn through, hands to hold when their sky collapsed, then drop when the sun came back. So you're standing in the quiet that follows the disappearing act. No warning, no closure, just echo. And your mind starts swinging at you. What did I miss? What did I break? Nothing. You didn't break. You outgrew the cage they were trying to measure you with. They counted on your softness. They counted on your patience. They counted on the way you forgive, like a habit. But you're not a habit. You're a horizon distant until they realize it's the only direction left. Hear me. Feeling this pain doesn't make you weak. It means the old skin is coming off. It means the version of you that tolerated crumbs is coughing up the dust. So take a breath. Look at the floor they vanished from and the crown you dropped to pick them up. Wipe it with bloody hands if you have to. Set it back on. Not as a performance, as a reminder. You weren't the mistake, you were the lesson they weren't ready to learn. You keep blaming yourself, don't you? Every night, every silent hour, you rewind the scene and whisper, what did I do wrong? Let me carve this into your bones, so you never forget you didn't go wrong. They did. They weren't built to endure something real. They weren't ready for someone who doesn't flinch at the truth. Someone who doesn't trade honesty for comfort. Someone who refuses to dress their soul in lies. Most people panic when they meet a heart that bleeds without disguise. Because real exposes what's fake. Your loyalty was steady. Your presence was raw. You stood there with open hands, offering something unshakable. And instead of holding it, they trembled. Because the weight of sincerity is heavier than the lightness of deceit. They said they wanted honesty. They swore they craved loyalty, but when you gave it, unfiltered and unbreakable, they ran, not because you failed, not because you lacked anything, but because your truth reflected every lie they tried to hide. And that reflection burned them. It showed them who they were, and they couldn't stomach it. So now here you stand, confused, searching for answers. Stop. The answer is simple. You are not broken. You are not the flaw. You are the one thing they couldn't counterfeit. Remember this. Their panic is not your burden. Their weakness is not your shame. And their flight is not your fault. The realness in you is a weapon. They mistook it for fragility. But time will show them the truth. The thing they abandoned wasn't broken. It was priceless. And you still are. They all swear the same oath with their lips. I want honesty. I crave something real. But the moment you hand it to them raw, jagged, unpolished, they flinch. They retreat. They choke on the very truth they begged you to speak. Because honesty isn't sweet. It isn't wrapped in velvet. It's sharp. It cuts. And when you laid your soul bare, when you let them see the scars, they didn't embrace you. They recoiled. Do you know why? Because truth is a mirror. And mirrors don't just show you, they show them. Their lies, their cowardice, the masks they wear to survive in a world built on pretending. They live behind curtains, hiding their rot. Smiles painted on like war paint. Promises dripping with sugar that melts into poison. They need the mask because reality would expose how fragile they are. And you, with your unflinching honesty, ripped that mask apart. So they ran. They always run. Not because you were cruel, but because you were too pure, too unyielding, too unwilling to play their games. And in that instant, you learn the second truth. People don't fear lies. They fear truth. They fear the kind of soul that doesn't break. The kind of spirit that refuses to be bent into their shape. So they left you standing in silence. But remember this, they didn't run from your darkness. They ran from their reflection in your light. Your first mistake was simple. You thought loyalty was a chain that bound two souls together. You thought that because you gave everything, they would give it back. But loyalty is not a trade. It is not a bargain. It is not a contract signed in blood. Loyalty is a gift, and gifts can be thrown into the dirt by hands too weak to hold them. You believed that your devotion was a shield, that if you bled for them, they would guard you in return. But here's the cruel truth. Most people don't honor loyalty. They exploit it. They see your heart as a tool. They see your patience as permission. They see your sacrifice as something owed, not something sacred. You handed them gold. They treated it like scrap metal. You offered a kingdom. They sold it for the price of a fleeting thrill. And yet, listen closely, none of this means you failed. It means you were too rare for their hands. It means you walked into their life as a storm, and they tried to cage you like a pet. They wanted your love without carrying its weight. They wanted your fire without enduring the heat. But you are not a servant to their emptiness. You are not a prisoner of their shallow hearts. So don't let your loyalty be the rope they use to hang you. Cut it, burn it, watch it turn to ash. Because if you keep feeding parasites, you'll drain your own veins dry. And you've bled enough. They mistook your heart for a contract. But contracts can be broken. Your worth cannot. You were never a person to them. You were a resource, a fire to sit beside when the world froze, a shoulder when their own weight became unbearable, a voice in the dark when their silence grew too heavy. To them, you were fuel. Fuel for their ego, fuel for their weakness, fuel for their endless hunger to be seen, to be wanted, to feel alive. And they drained you. They drank you down like a thief at a feast, filling their emptiness with your light. Every late night call you answered, every time you picked them up when they had fallen. Every moment you sacrificed your own peace so theirs could survive. They consumed it all. But parasites never say thank you. They only vanish when they've taken everything they can. And that's exactly what they did. One day you woke up and their chair was empty. No goodbye. No warning, just silence. And here you are staring at the ruins, thinking maybe you weren't enough. Maybe if you had given more, loved harder, bled deeper, they would have stayed. Stop. They didn't leave because you were empty. They left because they were full. They had stolen every drop of comfort, every ounce of attention, and once their cup overflowed, they walked away as if you were disposable. But what they don't realize, what you are only starting to taste, is that even in their absence, you remain. Broken, maybe, but standing. Alone, yes, but alive. They took what they could, but they couldn't take you. And the silence they left behind isn't the end. It's the spark. Now you sit in the wreckage, don't you? The laughter is gone. The noise has died. All that remains is silence, thick, suffocating, pressing down on your chest like a tombstone. And in that silence, your mind turns against itself. It whispers, "You failed. You weren't enough. You should have fought harder." But hear me, those whispers are lies. You didn't fail. You didn't collapse. You survived. What really happened? You didn't fall short. You outgrew the walls they built around you. You broke the lock without even realizing it. They wanted you tamed. They wanted you contained. They wanted you small enough to control. But you were never meant to fit inside their fragile cage. Your spirit was too wide, too raw, too relentless. You stretched beyond the bars, and the moment you did, they panicked. Because people like them only know how to love you when you're bowed, not when you're rising. Now the silence they left you with, you mistake it for emptiness. But it is not emptiness. It is space. It is the void where your rebirth begins. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it burns. But pain is just the sound of your old self shattering, making room for the creature you're becoming. They thought they caged you. They thought they broke you. But in truth, they built the fire pit you're now climbing out of. Ashes at your feet, crown in your hands, eyes sharper than they ever remembered. This silence, it isn't your punishment. It's your freedom ringing in their ears. Do you see it now? The pattern they prayed you'd never notice. The cycle they kept you trapped in warmth when they needed you. Cold when you needed them. They didn't stumble, they rehearsed. Every late reply was a signal. Every excuse, a rehearsal for departure. Every half smile, every hollow promise, a stitch in the mask they wore to keep you blind. But masks crack, and when you looked into their eyes long enough, you saw the fracture. You saw the emptiness swimming beneath the surface, and something inside you tore. Not your worth, not your soul, but the illusions you had wrapped yourself in. You thought you were holding a heart. Turns out, you were clutching smoke. You thought you found forever. What you really held was a pattern, a cycle repeating itself. Dishonesty disguised as love, abandonment dressed as fate. And here you are, your ribcage open, digging through your own chest, searching for the pieces of you they left behind. But don't confuse this excavation with weakness. This is not desperation. This is reclamation. Every shard you pull from the ashes, every memory you bleed onto your hands, is proof you're still alive. Proof you're still becoming. Proof that even destruction can be a kind of creation. They never expected you to see it. They counted on your blindness, but you saw, you noticed. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. That's when the game changes. That's when their control dies. Pain. You treat it like an enemy, like a punishment. But pain is the midwife of your rebirth. It doesn't come to kill you. It comes to strip away the fragile skin that could never protect you. Every tear that burned down your face, that was fire washing you clean. Every sleepless night where the silence pressed against your skull, that was the forge heating, reshaping the steel in your veins. You thought the breaking was the end, but breaking is only the first step. What they left you with looks like ashes, cold, gray, lifeless. But look closer. Ashes aren't the end of fire. They're the evidence that something once burned, and the soil where something stronger can rise. So stop mourning what turned to dust. Stop kneeling in the ruin like it owes you answers. Nothing there can speak. Nothing there can save you. The only voice that matters now is the one rising inside you. The one that whispers, "Get up. Put your hands in the fire and drag yourself out. Bleed if you must, but bleed forward. Stumble if you must, but stumble toward the light of your own becoming. This is not weakness. This is transformation. This is the storm, learning how to command the sky. This is the cage opening, not because they freed you, but because you kicked it apart with broken bones and burning rage. So let them hear nothing from you. No cries, no begging, no final message, only silence. And that silence will wrap around their throats tighter than any chain. They'll choke on the absence of you. They'll feel it in every moment you refuse to return. Because your pain is not their feast anymore. It is your fire. And with it, you are already being reborn. Not every battle is fought with a scream. Not every war is won with the clash of steel. Sometimes the deadliest strike is no strike at all. Sometimes the sharpest blade is silence. You don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove a single thing. Noise is for the desperate, for those clawing at the walls, begging to be heard. But you've learned the discipline of stillness. You've discovered the terror of a closed mouth, the violence hidden in quiet eyes. Your silence is not emptiness. It is judgment. It is a verdict. It is the echo of everything they lost. They expected you to rage. They wanted your fury. Because fury still ties you to them. As long as you're shouting, you're still speaking their name. As long as you're fighting, they still matter. So you starved them. You cut the oxygen. You walked away without a backward glance. And in that choice, your silence grew teeth. Now it stalks them in the dark. Every laugh they force is hollow. Every new distraction collapses under the weight of your absence. They thought your quiet meant defeat, but silence is not surrender. Silence is a crown. Silence is a blade pressed to their throat, not swung, not thrown, just resting there, reminding them you could cut deep without a sound. Be so transformed they cannot recognize you. Be so untouchable their voices bounce off your armor. You don't rise with noise. You rise with presence. You rise with silence that roars louder than thunder. Let them try to approach you now. They won't even know who you are anymore. You wait for the message. You wait for the call. You wait for that one fragile word, sorry. But let me carve the reality into your bones. Most of them will never say it. Not because they forgot what they did, not because they don't remember the nights they left you bleeding in silence, but because they don't value you enough to care. That's the part that stings, isn't it? Not the loss of their presence, but the realization that your pain never weighed on their conscience. They sleep well, they laugh loud, they walk freely, unburdened by what they broke. And you sit there, waiting for a knock on the door that will never come, for an apology that will never arrive. Stop. You don't owe them that weight. You don't owe them that patience. You don't owe them the throne of your mind. Closure is not a gift wrapped in their hands. Closure is a sword you forge in your own fire. It is the moment you say, I don't need your sorry. I don't need your permission. I don't need you at all. Understand this. The lack of apology is the apology. The silence is the answer. The absence of remorse tells you everything words could not. And yes, that truth is cold. It is sharp. It doesn't soothe you. It cuts you clean. But that cut frees you. Because the day you stop waiting for their regret is the day you start building your own peace. Not borrowed, not begged for, owned. So when your heart cries out, why won't they say sorry? Tell it the truth. They never cared enough to regret it. And you don't need them to. They were never the story. They were only a chapter. A page that burned when you turned it, leaving nothing but smoke curling in the air. And here you are, staring at the ashes, still trying to read words that no longer exist. Listen to me, stop digging through the ruins. The answers you want aren't buried there. There is no secret sentence you missed, no hidden meaning scrawled between the lines. What's gone is gone. What's dead is dead. Yes, they walked away. Yes, they left you with silence where their voice used to live. But that silence, that vast, echoing emptiness, it is not a grave, it is soil. And soil was made to grow new things. So bury them, not with tears, not with anger. Bury them with silence. Cover their memory like dirt over a coffin. Not to dishonor what was, but to keep what's left of you alive. Because you cannot keep watering dead roots and wonder why no flowers bloom. You cannot keep feeding ghosts and expect them to stay. Their time in your kingdom is over. The gates are closed, the chapter sealed. They were never meant to be eternal. This journey, this road of blood, fire, and stone, it is not about them. It is about you, your scars, your discipline, your unshakable will. It is about rebuilding, brick by burning brick, a throne that no betrayal can touch. So let the past rest, let it rot where it lies, and walk away with the crown in your hand, the silence at your back, and the fire in your chest. The world will call it loss, but you will know the truth. It was rebirth. Here's the part they never saw coming. They thought your silence would mean defeat. They thought your absence would be their freedom. But absence is a mirror sharper than any blade. You stopped reaching. You stopped bleeding. You stopped begging. And the moment you did, a shift echoed through the walls of their hollow world. Now the silence hunts them. In the middle of the night, when the crowd is gone and the laughter has dried, they scroll through old messages like archaeologists digging for bones. They read your words again and again, searching for life in the ruins, but finding only the echo of what they killed. They miss you now, not because they love you, not because they finally grew, but because emptiness tastes bitter when there's no one left to drain. They miss the way you carried their chaos. They miss the way you burned just to keep them warm. They miss the light they smothered. And you don't miss them. You only miss the illusion you once believed in. You miss the mask you built for them, not the hollow soul that wore it. That's the cruel comedy of it all. They only begin to value what they lost when you stop offering it. The irony is sharp, isn't it? They are finally starving, but you've already moved beyond hunger. Your silence has become a storm, and they stand in the rain, drenched, shivering, replaying every moment they took you for granted. They call it regret, but for you, it's justice. Because your absence screams louder than their presence ever did. You keep telling yourself, maybe you were too much, too intense, too loyal, too heavy. But let me tear that lie apart. You weren't too much. They were too little. You poured consistency into their veins. They gave you confusion in return. You offered presence. They offered absence. You carried their storms. They ignored your silence. That wasn't love. That was convenience. That was manipulation, dressed in tender words, false promises, stitched together with threads of deceit. They fed you scraps and called it a feast. They withheld affection and called it mystery. They dangled hope like a key, but the lock was rusted shut long before you arrived. And yet you stayed. You endured the cold reply. You excused the distance. You stitched their wounds while your own bled open. You thought your sacrifice would teach them how to love. Instead, it only taught them how much you tolerate. That's the hollow truth. You weren't abandoned because you were broken. You were abandoned because your soul was too vast for their shallow hearts to contain. They didn't lose interest. They were never capable of loyalty to begin with. So let that truth cut you. Let it scar. Because scars are proof you survived. And proof terrifies liars more than anything else. Remember this, they never loved you. They loved the reflection of themselves in your loyalty. And when that reflection cracked, they ran from the mirror. But the mirror didn't break. It still stands. and in its shattered surface, you finally see who you are. The fall felt endless, didn't it? One moment you were holding the world together with bloody hands. The next, you were buried beneath its weight. Every promise collapsed like a crumbling tower, and the rubble pressed against your chest until you could barely breathe. You thought it was the end. You thought this was death. But understand, what you lost was not life. What you lost was the illusion. The collapse was not your punishment. It was your release. Because only in ruin do you see the foundations that were never real. Only when the walls cave in do you realize they were made of paper. They never built a fortress with you. They built a stage, and when the performance ended, they left you stranded in the dark. But here, in the silence of the wreckage, something stirs. It is not them. It is not their voice. It is you. You, standing up from the ashes, covered in soot and scars, but carrying something they never touched, the raw core of who you are. Healing does not arrive with soft hands and kind words. It arrives with fire. It arrives with nights that break you open, and mornings that demand you rise, even when your body begs to stay buried. It is not gentle, it is war. But war makes kings. War sharpens edges. War carves truth into your bones until you can no longer pretend. So let the collapse teach you. Let the silence forge you. What they destroyed has already burned away. What remains is unyielding. What remains is dangerous. What remains is the beginning of the self they could never imagine. The self they will never touch again. Don't waste another breath on explanations. Don't waste another heartbeat trying to justify your worth to those who could never see it. Your silence has already spoken louder than any words could. It is the final decree, the last judgment. They will come back market, not out of love, not out of guilt, but out of hunger for the comfort you once gave. They will crawl to your gates, knock on doors that no longer exist, search for the version of you that died in the fire. But that version is gone, buried, turned to ash. In its place stands something sharper, colder, unbreakable. A being forged in the storm, wearing scars like armor, wearing silence like a crown. Let them beg, let them drown in their own regret. You owe them nothing, not a word, not a glance, not even the mercy of your anger, because rage is still connection, but silence is the blade that never misses. Every step you take now, every breath you claim, is a monument built to your survival. Your pain became bricks, your discipline became steel, and your absence, it is the scar carved across their memory, a wound that never heals. They will tell the story wrong. They will paint you as the villain because it hurts less than admitting their betrayal. Let them choke on their own lies. Because legends are not born from applause. Legends are born from ashes. And you are no longer the loyal soul they could exploit. You are the silence that haunts them, the fire they cannot touch, the crown they can never wear. This is not the end. This is coronation. Your reign begins where their story ends.